Hey everyone, this is Compound Action, how small steps create massive change. I'm Corey Applin, and today I'm going to be talking about something that's really important to me, which is why to eat organic. So I'll cover what organic is, why it's important, and some of the dangers that may come with not eating organic. I certainly eat organic whenever possible. I feed organic foods to my kids, and I'll lay out a case today why you might want to consider that as well. But first, what is organic? So, organic refers to the way the food is produced in a way that works with nature instead of against it. So organic farming really avoids like the use of synthetic pesticides, herbicides, fertilizers, genetically modified organisms, also called GMOs, and artificial additives. So instead, it focuses on natural methods like composting, crop rotation, using beneficial insects to grow food that's actually healthier for people, it's healthier for animals, and it's healthier for the planet. For animal products like meat, eggs, and dairy, organic means the animals are raised in environments that allow them to graze outdoors, to eat organic food themselves, and live without being injected with growth hormones or antibiotics, which eventually would make their way into your body. So, in simpler terms, organic food is produced as naturally as possible without shortcuts or harmful chemicals to ensure it's better for your health, it's better for the environment. So, when you see the USDA organic label, it means the product has met strict standards and is free from most artificial ingredients. So, that's what organic is. But why is this so important? I'm going to lay out my top 12 reasons. Number one being it reduces pesticide exposure. And why this is concerning is because some pesticides are linked to neurologic issues, especially in children. This is why it's so important to feed kids organic foods. And other pesticides are classified as probably carcinogenic to humans, which that's enough for me to be a little worried about. This is done by the International Agency for Research on Cancer. And what they're also seeing is that chronic exposure to these pesticides may contribute to hormonal imbalances, developmental issues, and, like I mentioned, even cancer. For sure, it can contribute to oxidative stress, which I covered in another podcast episode, which just totally wreaks havoc on the body. And this isn't just opinion, there's evidence showing this. A study from the Journal of the American Medical Association found that people who ate more organic food had a 25% lower risk of cancer. So you can literally reduce your risk of developing some types of cancers by a quarter just by eating more organic foods. And what's crazy to me is that over 1 billion pounds of pesticides are used every year just in the US. We're not even talking about, crops from around the world. And pesticide residues remain on about 70% of non organically grown produce. So if you're not eating organic, it is highly likely that you're eating these pesticides. Another reason to eat organic is that it's higher in nutrient content. So, healthier soil from organic farming retains more micronutrients and organic matter. This leads to higher nutrient density in crops. And antioxidants like polyphenols, for example, are much higher in organic produce and can even reduce oxidative stress in the body. And besides the higher concentration of antioxidants, organic foods have also been shown to have lower levels of certain toxic metals like cadmium. So, another great reason to eat organic. And an interesting fact, organic milk has about 50% more omega-3 fatty acids than conventional milk, which supports brain health, heart health. It's anti inflammatory. So, the more omega 3s you can get in your body, the better. Organic foods are also better for the environment. Traditional farming contributes to a degradation of soil. It can also lead to water contamination and hurt the environment in other ways. Whereas organic farming, by avoiding the synthetic chemicals, it supports healthier ecosystems. For example, in the Mississippi River, there's something called the Mississippi River Dead Zone. And it's a region that's totally devoid of marine life. And it's largely caused by fertilizer runoff from conventional farms. Now, this next one is probably one of the top on the list for me, but eating organic avoids eating genetically modified organisms, GMOs. And GMOs are essentially produced in a lab to make certain crops more resistant, which may sound like a good thing, but we don't really know the long-term effects. Because right now, the FDA considers GMOs safe, but there's really no long-term research. And animal studies have shown possible links between GMO diets and liver problems, kidney problems, and reproductive issues. There's also possibly a connection with allergies. So introducing genes from one organism to another might inadvertently create new allergens or even exacerbate existing ones. And the reason why this one is so insidious for me is because right now in the US, there's no requirement for companies to label their foods as GMO, whereas most other developed countries do have that requirement. So the problem here is if they don't have to label it, you just don't know if you're getting it or not. So unless something is organic, which we know cannot be GMO, then you just kind of have to assume that if it's not organic, that it likely is using GMOs. And the stats show us that about 75 to 80% of processed foods in the US do contain GMOs. That includes products with corn syrup, soy, canola oil, and even sugar from genetically modified sugar beets. So maybe it's not surprising that the US is the largest producer of GMO crops, with over 90% of soy, corn, and cotton being genetically modified. But if that's not enough of a reason, we also have the welfare of the animals and the standards for animal welfare. Because animals raised conventionally, they're often confined to really small spaces, they're injected with hormones to speed up growth, and they're fed unnatural diets that can lead to a lot of health problems. So organic certification requires that the animals have access to pasture and are raised in conditions that try to reduce stress, which the interesting thing is it improves both the animal welfare and the meat quality. And kind of related to that, with organic meats, there's no synthetic hormones or antibiotics. And I've discussed before how right now the world is in a fertility health crisis. And I do wonder how much consuming synthetic hormones in meats might be contributing to that. And because they're pumping the livestock full of antibiotics, it can also contribute to a rise in antibiotic resistant infections. The CDC estimates about 2.8 million Americans develop antibiotic resistant infections annually, which may be stemming from livestock. Another benefit to organic farms is it helps to preserve pollinator populations. And why this is important is bees pollinate about 35% of global food crops. And right now they're in a massive decline, which is threatening food security. Without these pollinators, crops can't grow. So the fact that organic farms avoid pesticides, which have been shown to disrupt bee reproduction and navigation, can lead to better bee health and populations. And a study was even done on this in 2017. They found that organic fields supported up to 50% more pollinators than conventional fields. Another reason for me to eat organic is it just tastes fresher. Organic produce is usually grown in more nutrient-rich soil, and it's allowed to ripen naturally, which essentially means it's going to be fuller in flavor and have better texture. Another case to eat organic really has nothing to do with the fact that it's organic by itself, but it's more in support of local farmers. Organic farms are often family owned and rely on local support. So purchasing organic foods helps sustain the farms, keeps the food dollars circulating in local communities. And my last case, if I haven't convinced you so far, why to eat organic is to protect future generations. Organic farming prioritizes soil health, biodiversity, and water conservation, which ensures the resources are available for future food production. And organic farms emit about 50% fewer greenhouse gases, so consumers actively reduce their carbon footprint. I hope I've made my case effectively, but I know some people listening are going to be worried about cost. Buying organic is more expensive in most cases. But my argument against that is it's still less expensive than a hospital bill. It's still less expensive than managing diabetes or heart disease or high blood pressure or a lot of these chronic conditions that are associated with eating ultra processed, poor quality foods. So I always look at the food we eat as being like an investment into our body. The more we invest today, the more it's going to pay off 10, 15, 20 years down the road. Where if we don't invest, eventually that bank is empty. And that's when health really starts to suffer. And all you have to do is look at the statistics behind the rise in chronic conditions to know that that's already happening. For someone where this is a new introduction to eating organic and they don't know where to get started, start with the Dirty Dozen. This is the name given to the crops that have the highest pesticide residues on them. I'll briefly list them out, but you can definitely find this list online. 1 is strawberries, 2 is spinach, 3 is kale or collard greens, 4 is peaches, 5 is pears, 6 is nectarines, 7 is apples, 8 is grapes, 9 is bell and hot peppers, 10 is cherries, 11 blueberries, and 12 green beans. So make sure to take a copy of this list with you to the grocery store, and that is definitely the best place to start with eating organic. That's it for today's episode. Thanks for joining me today, and I'll catch you on the next one.